Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brainfreeze. We are your part-time pacifist hosts.
I am John.
And I'm 6cc. And when there's just too much cool anime to watch, we've got you covered. We're already neck-deep into summer season, but regardless, today we will of course give you our 2 cents on the new premieres we checked out in the sneak peek. And after that, we will return to the shores of the North Sea and discuss the second outing of the historical fiction Viking epic Vinland Saga. But before all of that, our resident embedded journalist John has been in the trenches of Anime Expo in Los Angeles, and he has brought back a blood-curdling report of the horrors he encountered there, which he will elaborate on momentarily in our recon section. So grab your lanyard, sharpen your battle axe, or get ready to sow the seeds of peace, depending on your worldview, and definitely don't pause the pod. We'll be right back.
I think you're overselling me.
I oversell everything on this podcast, don't worry. It's just part of the program.
But yeah, I hit a couple of cons over the past couple months. A local one, which I went to last weekend. Played some rhythm games, bought some models, got some retro games. I didn't expect anyone to be selling import retro games at a local convention, which was pretty cool. But yes, the big highlight of the summer was I got on a plane and went to Los Angeles.
Descent into madness.
I don't like flying, but I wanted to go out there and met up with a friend of ours and went around the convention floor out there because, oh my god. So I had heard tales of Anime Expo being called LineCon, and if you've never been to it, you don't understand. Naive me was like, oh, well, geez, man, I've been in Anime NYC. I've been to New York Comic Con. I've been to FF14 Fan Fest. I'm no stranger to big shows. This was a whole new beast. So just to get into the convention, on day one, there was a line that curled around 3 times outside of the convention center, past the Staples Center, because I refuse to call it the Crypto.com arena.
Yeah, who would? Ugh.
And then apparently the line split 3 ways beyond that. So it took like an hour and a half to get in on the first day. But once inside, there was a lot to do and see. And my friend, we didn't even try to go to any panels because holy moly, dude.
I didn't look at the schedule or anything. I don't know if I assume there were interesting panels there and some bigger creators because it's one of the biggest anime cons out there. Is it the biggest in the US? Right, it is.
It's gotta be. Okay. If there's any bigger ones, I don't know of them, but
maybe more prolific ones, but I don't think so. I think Anime Expo is probably.
I think probably the 3 biggest cons here in the US are probably AX, NYCC, and San Diego Comic Con. Those are probably the 3 biggest ones. Otakon is probably up there too.
Yeah.
I mean, we went to it, 10, 12 years ago. Oh my god, what is time?
2010. 13
years!
Mm-hmm. It's been a while.
it's been a minute. But, that was also pretty big. I don't feel like it was as chaotic as AX was, but, it's also been almost a decade and a half, so things may have changed, and people have been wanting to get back to cons since the before times.
Mm-hmm. There were a lot of people. I mean, I don't know if it was as many as before the pandemic, but...
Yeah, there was a lot of people trying to get through part of the floor. There's a part of the floor that transitioned between the main exhibition vendor hall and then they called it entertainment hall, where they had some other exhibitors, and then the gaming section there. That in between section there was jammed up. You couldn't move through it.
Just a blockade.
Yeah, it was bad. And then they had someone on a bullhorn being like, you have to walk. And it's like, okay, all right, we're trying, you idiot.
It sounds like not a time I would like to have. So, I mean, what made it bearable? Like, did you see some cool shit?
We saw some neat stuff. Saw like, friggin' Psy Games was there, and they had their whole big bevy of like Uma Musume, Grand Blue, and Precon merch. That was all neat. You know, there was Bushiroad hawking all of their Weiss Schwartz and Hollow Live stuff. There was Kotobukiya. They had set up a whole bunch of their Mega Man kits and
nice
some upcoming Armored Core kits that look really cool, dude.
For Fires of Rubicon?
Yes.
It looks promising, but yeah, I've seen some of the model kits. They look good, yeah.
Yeah, and then we tried some video games because, of course, there were some people there showing off some stuff. Like Aniplex was there with Fate Samurai Remnant, and it's, a smaller scale Musou game with Fate characters, and it's really cool. Couldn't believe Psy Games had a playable build of Grand Blue Relink, so now now after having put hands on that game, I am convinced it is finally real because it kept getting delayed into the ground, and I was like, oh, this game isn't coming out. When they said, oh, this game is coming out in 2022, it wasn't coming out in 2022. Oh, this game's coming out in 2023. It's not coming out in 2023. But now that I've seen a playable build and it seems like really fun and really cool, I'm a little more convinced now. So. Who else was there? Nippon Ichi was there, and they had a whole ton of games. I tried an action game called Cry Machina. That was cool. But the real interesting part of the show, being at the show, was our friend was like, hey, Inti Creates is here. Oh, really? Let's go see what they're up to.
Ooh, neat.
So we get over there, and the booth is cordoned off, and we're like, what's going on here? In walks Aika Kobayashi, the voice actress Yoshiko from Love Live Sunshine. And she's there for a photo op for the Yohane the Parhelion game that they're working on. And she comes in, takes some photos, playing the game in a standee of all of the characters, and then she just as quickly takes off with her entourage, and we were like, what just happened?
Magic moment.
So that was really cool getting to see her. There was like a 1 in a million chance. That was really, really cool. And then after
good timing on you guys, I guess.
Yeah. And then after that, we tried the game out, and it's a really cool little like Metroidvania thing with all the girls from the show. And yeah, hey, it was a neat experience, and it's a cool game.
I have actually never heard about it until now. So interesting.
Well, here's the thing. Both the game and the anime adaptation were announced as April Fool's jokes, and now they're both real, kind of like what Arika did with Fighting EX Layer.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you can believe things that are announced on April 1st. But it kind of pulled the wool over you and some of the others, some of our other friends' eyes, because AEX was not the main reason I went out to California. So, y'all know there's this one VTuber I like to watch.
Uh-huh.
She and the company that she works for put on a concert at the El Rey Theater in Hollywood.
Is that a big stage?
It's a smaller place, but it's pretty well known because there's a lot of other big acts that have been there. Mm-hmm. And, it was decently well attended. There was maybe 100, 150 people there, and it was, for my first VTuber concert, it was a lot of fun. I think it was a lot of people's first quote-unquote idol concert, myself included. But the spirit was there, and it was really cool, seeing people who I, have known over the past couple of years and getting to see all the girls live on stage. And that was cool. That was a neat experience that, like I said, that was the main driver, and also AEX was that weekend. So I decided, screw it, I'll do both since I'm there.
It's going to be a good combination. I hope you didn't overexert yourself.
Nah.
I mean, it probably was also very hot in LA, so...
You know what? It actually wasn't.
Oh, nice.
Because LA is closer to the coast. So, like, back here at home, it's hot, and not only is it hot, it's humid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So out in LA, it was hot, but it was not humid, so it was comfortable. And the other thing about that the trip was the hotel I stayed at was super close to the convention center. Like, they had a shuttle running every 20 to 60 minutes out there. It was a 10-minute walk. So I was just like, okay, I'll just walk to the convention center. That's easy. But yes, it was a multi-purpose trip that was a lot of fun, and I'm glad I decided to go for it in spite of my absolute hatred of flying.
I mean, is there anyone who actually likes flying as a passenger in a big jet, whatever? I
mean, some people handle it better than others. Like,
yeah, sure. I don't mind it, but it's like, it's a means to an end, right? It's not like, oh my god, I get to go on a plane and fly for like 10 hours to get to the US or something like that. So...
like, I was lucky because the flight was direct both ways. So
yeah, that's important.
When I went to Vegas for FanFest in 2018, it was not direct. I had to stop at O'Hare in Chicago on the way there, and at Dulles in Washington D.C. on the way home, which wasn't bad. The layovers were very, very short, and like in O'Hare, the plane was literally down the hall. And in Dulles, the other plane was across the hall. So it was very short and very easy. So I'm thankful for that. But my big issue is getting off the ground and getting into the air, because I'm just sort of like...
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's always... That and the landing is always the best.
And turbulence.
Yeah, sure.
Because the flight out to L.A., the plane had, it had a flight tracker, as part of the seat back screen. And... boy shucks howdy, those flyover states in like Ohio and Indiana, the turbulence over them was bad. Yes.
But I'm glad to hear you had a good time. Would you, like, now that you have experienced AX firsthand for the first time, would you recommend our listenership to go if they haven't been and they are in somewhat close proximity? If
you're close, yeah. If it is not your first con, yes, I would not make this your first con. I would say please build up to AX before you decide to go to it.
Train yourself with the smaller con.
Yes. And as for the concert, I would go again if it was closer to home. Please, girls, if you're listening, please... have your show on the East Coast next time. I should be clear. This was Production Kawaii's Forever Bloom concert. It was not the concert that happened the next day that our friend went to, HoloLive Connect the World. It was not that one. Which is funny to say that they were the first, like, big major 3D VTuber concert. Technically, they beat them by one day. But yes, it was a great trip, and it was a lot of fun. The only thing I regret is, my friend and I went to the booth for this one company called Retro Psycho, and they had so many retro import games, and I wanted to buy them all, but I had to restrain myself to just like one thing, just because of the amount of space in my luggage. So I got myself a copy of Star Ocean. So, hey,
that's nice.
Yeah. But I got home, and I pretty much was dead for the next day.
Imagine. Yeah.
Jet lag did not hit on the way out, but boy, oh boy, did it hit on the way back.
Yeah, but it seems like it was worth it.
Yes, it was much worth it. I'll give some thought if I want to do it again next year. I don't know. The other trip I really wanted to make this year was FanFest, but as we record this, it is day 2 of FanFest, and tickets sold out in 15 minutes, so womp womp. We'll figure it out next. We'll all figure it out next year. Maybe some of us can do Comic-Con. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, for me it's a money thing, but I would love to go and see you guys again, but we'll see what happens.
Let's be real. It's always a money thing for all of us.
Yes, but some people have longer trips than others, just saying. So, and longer means more expensive as well, so we'll see.
Big true. But yes, that is my my con report. It was wild and crazy. I have 2 more shorter trips I'm going to do later in this year. One is local, one is in New York, but I am done with big giant trips for the year. I have met my quota, my whole one.
Well, as long as it was a fun time.
Yes, for sure.
Alright, sneak peek time. It's summer anime season already. I think some series are already airing their 4th episode or something. We started late. There was some rescheduling that had to be done, and we couldn't make it happen earlier, so we're running a bit late this time. But we're here now, so let's talk about the shows that we took a look at, which are not a lot this time around, because this is kind of a light season for both of us. For me, more than you this time, because I really only have a couple of shows that I was even interested in. So and a lot of backlog, so that fits very well. I also don't have a nope really, but I have a maybe that is bordering on a nope, and that is, let's just start with that. Oh yeah, for first-time listeners, of course, this section usually has our 3 categories: the nopes, so shows we don't intend to keep watching; the maybes, shows we might keep on watching depending on how they turn out in the coming episodes; and the keepers, shows that we are pretty sure we'll keep on watching. So my first maybe is, like I said, bordering on a nope, and that is the remake, reboot, whatever, new adaptation of Rurouni Kenshin. It's fine, but for me to consider sticking with it, this needed to be more than fine. I like the old show quite a bit, and that one is still very watchable, especially since most of its filler is concentrated at its last third. So after the Kyoto arc, you can just stop watching the show and switch over to the last OVA, which is depressing as fuck, by the way. But anyway, so even if they stick closer to the manga on this one, I don't know if that will make most of it better. The animation is serviceable, but it needed to be great to justify this version's existence, in my opinion. Like, if this is a Dragon Ball Kai version of the material, then sure. If this is your first time, like, checking out that franchise, it's probably going to be the way to go, the thing to watch. But for me, it needed to be more than aggressively mid, which sadly is often Leiden Films' modus operandi, and they are handling this, so this is kind of what I expected. So this is bordering, like I said, on nope for me. I have only watched 1 episode, but so far I feel about this the same I felt about the Shaman King remake, which is, if there comes a point where I have literally nothing else to watch, I might binge it, but right now I'm not that interested. So unless they do something special with it in the coming episode or 2 episodes, I'm probably out. And the old show still exists, and I have it on DVD completely, all of the OVAs, all of the TV shows. So that's fine. I can still watch that, and we're going to have a good time. And I don't know if I would have that with the new one, but I probably won't find out. So
fair enough.
Yeah, John, what is your first maybe?
First maybe is The Devil is a Part-Timer Season 2, Part 2. These multi-core shows are killing me, man.
It's getting worse with Spy Family next season. Did you see that
No.
It's officially called Season 2, but we already named the one we reviewed, the second part of the first season. Apparently we named that Season 2, if I'm not mistaken. So I have to rename that in our
I thought they did. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yes, exactly.
no. Hold on. No, no. The official name was Part 2, though.
Yes, that's true.
Okay,
and we called it Season 2, right? So the problem was that we expected it to just be the second season. Because sometimes they just call the second season part 2, but no, it was only part 2 of the first season for some reason. So, yeah, the more you know.
Couldn't have known ahead of time.
No, I guess not.
Anyway, I'm labeling The Devil as a part-timer a maybe only because the first part of this season was kind of...
Yeah, I wasn't too happy with it. If you remember, I remember our review, and that's why I didn't check out the second part of this. Because judging from what I heard from the manga, one of my main problems with the show, which is I forgot her name, the child's name, the baby.
Alice Ramos.
Alice Ramos. She's gonna stay.
Yeah, I mean she's still in there, but they don't really. I mean, so far from the few episodes I've watched, they haven't like really overemphasized her. Like she has been in a few scenes, and okay, she's there.
Yeah, but is the animation better? Is the direction better?
It seems about the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like you could do worse.
True.
You could do much, much better, though.
Yeah, and that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
If I hadn't rewatched the first season before we watched the first part of the second one, I probably wouldn't have been so down on the show, but the first season was so good, and then the second season was so... Alright. Meh. So, that's just like my motivation to keep on watching the show at this point. Unless someone tells me, hey, it gets really good again, the story gets really good, and whatever, that weird MacGuffin baby disappears. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, I think they're kind of... I mean, so far she's kind of just been around occasionally, but they have this other character now who might be important to Alice Ramos, so we'll see.
Yeah, I hope...
I mean, I don't hate her, but at the same time, it's sort of like,
Yeah, she's just a plot vehicle, really, and I don't know, it seems a bit lazy, that's all. Yeah. So, just saying, the dynamic... my main problem was she changed the dynamic between all of the main characters, and everything was kind of focusing on her at some point, and that was not the interesting dynamic that we had in the first season. So,
right.
Yeah,
no, I get that.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe you'll report back if you finish it and tell me, hey, this was a really good season, and maybe I'll check it out again. But considering my backlog and everything, I'm not enticed to keep on watching this for now.
I mean, they're kind of building some stuff with some of the characters on the side that could be neat. So, I'm at least interested in that. So we'll find out. Okay,
yeah, then hope you have a good time with that. My next maybe is Undead Girl Murder Farce.
What?
That's a title.
Okay.
Yeah. That is... this show is set in an alternative version of the Meiji era where supernatural beings exist, but since the beginning of the westernization have been hunted down and are now mostly just theater acts for the low masses. And our main character, Tsugaru, is half human, half Oni, and plans to fight until the Oni fully consumes him and he can go berserk on the bloodthirsty audience and theater owners as kind of like a revenge thing. But then he comes across the immortal girl Aya and her maid Shizuku, who contract him, originally to kill Aya because someone cut off her head and abducted her body, so... After 900 years of living, she doesn't see much sense in going on now reduced to this state, which is understandable. But Tsugaru convinces Aya to join him in a quest to find whoever stole her body. Who apparently is working for the same guy who apparently took away Tsugaru's humanity and turned him into a half Oni. So they both have a reason to find that guy and, let him have it. So, this is a murder mystery by the guy who wrote Kaguya-sama.
Oh.
And that means it has very snappy, funny dialogue, and it looks good. The fight between Shizuku and Tsugaru in the first episode is well choreographed. And the OP is really fun, is quite a banger, and it exuded a lot of charm in the first episode. And style, and I liked it. I liked the setting, I liked the supernatural angle, and I liked a murder mystery on occasion, more often than not. So yeah, this pushed all the right buttons for me, so I'm gonna probably keep on watching it, unless, like I said, I've only watched the first episode so far, but unless something boring happens in the coming episodes. So it's still a maybe for now. But yeah, this might become a keeper very quickly. John, what is your next maybe?
Helck.
Ah, yes. You told me about it. This being goofy fun.
So this is a story all about a nation in the demon world where the demon king has been defeated at the hands of the heroes of humanity. And now there's this competition being held for who will become the new demon king. And one of the 4 imperial heavenly lords, Vermilio, is in charge of this tournament. And she has come face to face with this human competitor. How did this human get into the demon underworld? Why is he here? What are his motivations? This big burly guy whose name is simply Helck. And he, for some reason, holds this grudge against the humans. He says with this big wide smile, "Let's destroy all of the humans."
All right. And
he is super fast, super strong, and just he has this like deadpan attitude and this nothing look on his face most of the time. But he also seems like this pretty good-natured guy who's willing to get along with the other competitors and be like, he's there for the spirit of the sport. And Vermilio is just completely, totally undone by all of the things that he is able to do so well. And this is a stupid comedy show, but I'm kind of interested in seeing what goes on with this, because it's hard to do comedy, right? But in the first few episodes so far, it has been able to elicit laughs in some fun ways. In more than one different, there's more than one type of laugh that they're going for with this show. That's and cool. Sometimes it's like, you'll have your character like, ha, sort of, whatever. Oh, okay, all right. But sometimes there's like, one of my favorite ones in the most recent episode was just like, you're expecting this one reaction, but you get like the complete opposite, just like, oh, okay, sort of reaction. And I think that's equally funny. Just this sometimes the subversion of expectation is equally funny.
Absolutely. I mean, so it's nice that it's not a one joke show, which we've had a couple of in the past years. But this sounds more like something maybe along the lines of Made Wars.
Yeah, I could see that comparison.
That also had a lot of different comedic angles to it. First, the whole concept, but then also great situational comedy, some witty banter and stuff like that. So, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, and I mean, it's produced by the folks at Satellite, so it looks pretty good, or it has looked pretty good so far. And as far as I know, the manga for this has had its run. So this could be the complete story that they're trying to tell with the show. But, that will remain to be seen, because I think it's slated for like 24, 25, 26 episodes. It's slated to run for 2 seasons. Maybe there'll be more after that. Don't know, how they'll compress the story down, but, we'll see. I'm here to at least check it out and see how much further it goes. But, tentatively, we'll see what happens with it. So, are we into keepers now, I believe?
Not quite yet. I still have one maybe left.
Oh, okay.
So don't really have many keepers. And that is Zom 100. The bucket list of the dead. John, what do you think is worse, work or a zombie apocalypse?
Work.
The main character of this story probably will agree with you, because he is trapped in his torturous office job, depressed as fuck.
Dude, that's a mood.
Yeah, but suddenly zombie outbreak, which gives him the unexpected and welcome opportunity to escape his daily grind and makes him very, very happy. He also draws up a bucket list of 100 things he wants to do now, which he wasn't able to do because work was petrifying his very existence. And of course, zombies everywhere, which doesn't make getting that list done any easier. But that's where the fun parts and hijinks come in. It's a really good-looking show. Great humor. The animation is top-notch. The color palette pops, and I'm ready to follow the main character on his apocalyptic fun-time adventure. Still a maybe, because I've only watched the first episode, which was great, but I don't know if the actual bucket list thing will be as fun or as subversive as the first episode. So, yeah, or if the animation quality will stay as good as it was in the first episode. But it looks really promising. And I've also read that the black company our main character Akira is working at in the first episode is a not so subtle reference to OLM.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Interesting. I wonder if there's more like that in there, though I feel like the company life part of Akira's life is now really over. So we'll see what he does in the remaining episodes. But yeah, first episode was a banger. Definitely an eye-catcher and everything, and funny and all that. And also a bit emotional. Like, there's a moment when Akira realizes that he doesn't have to work anymore. And I was cheering for the guy. Like, he's really, really... Like, it's this moment of relief and freedom where he's literally running from the zombies and realizes that everything starts to fill up with color, which was like everything was monochrome. Like, the color palette was becoming more and more monochrome the more depressed he was getting because of the work. And then when the zombies attack, suddenly there are spots of colors everywhere, and suddenly everything becomes colorful again. It's great. Like, that's how you do visual emotion, guys. And yeah, it's good stuff. And I wonder how much more, what more the show has to offer. But yeah, the first episode was really fun. So yeah, for now maybe. But again, just like Undead Girl Murder Farce, this might become a keeper very quickly.
Cool.
All right. Then we're moving over to the keepers. John, what is your first keeper?
My first keeper was one I wasn't expecting, but apparently Tonikaku Kawaii is back for like a mini season during the summer. So Tonikaku Kawaii High School Days is this like 4-episode thing that's getting shown every other week, and NASA has been recruited by one of his former teachers to help out at a school teaching programming to an all-girls class. And, of course, you can make your obvious jokes, but NASA is still very loyal to his wife, Tsukasa, but Tsukasa is still, about the whole thing. And, interesting, there is a girl in class whose name is Kaguya. NASA finds at one point on one of the blackboards a whole bunch of big maths that would, work out to, this is how you would calculate a trip to the moon. But then he was like, but there's no maths for calculating your trip back home. And then he gets chewed out by this girl, like, maybe I don't want to come home. And it's like, there's something going on here, isn't there? So, I'll keep watching the show because I like these characters, and I'm interested to see how that plays out and what does that mean.
Sounds like an interesting, unexpected little mystery.
Yeah, and like I said, I was, after the last season ended, I was like, that was fun. Here's 4 more episodes. Okay, sure. Definitely watch more of that. So what's another keeper you have? Another keeper is kind of talked about it a little bit during the con report, but Yohane the Parhelion, Sunshine in the Mirror. I don't think it's a secret that I like Love Live anymore, but it's been a minute since the girls of Love Live Sunshine have been around, so this is kind of a neat story where what if the girls lived in an alternate world where everything is like powered by magic, and each of them has like they have a different job that they're doing, and the story revolves around Yohane, the main character, getting to know them in this world and what they do and becoming friends. And there might be some lurking threat in the background that's threatening their home of Numazu. So, it's neat to see them in a different setting with this different story and different character designs that are all really cool. So, was I was in it for that, but then, seeing how, it's being playing out, I'm like, hey, this is a nice alternate world sort of thing.
Do the characters just look the same, or have the same names or whatever? Or do they actually behave like their love life counterparts?
They kind of have some of their mannerisms from the original show, and of course their names too. Their first names anyway. Well, I mean, Yohane's name in the original was Yoshiko, but okay. she fancied herself Yohane the Devil, so it's a real big chuny energy.
So that could be just some, I don't know, maybe they at some point will reference it back in the other show and be like, hey, this is just something she cooked up in her head, and maybe she wrote in her diary or some shit, or on fanfiction.net or whatever. I don't know.
I mean, I hope not, because this is not being played as like isekai or anything. It is being played as, it is the characters that but a different setting, and they kind of have like different roles to play.
Sure. I mean, it could be, anime have done the stuff before where they have like an in-universe TV show with some of the characters, then that gets spun out and, have that becomes its own story. So maybe it could be also something like that. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's a fun concept. Is there also singing, or is that completely out of the show?
There's a little bit of it.
Okay, all right. I was just wondering how much it is still linked to the original thing.
Well, I mean, Yohane's big goal is to become big famous. And she went to the equivalent of Tokyo in this world to try and hit it big. And when she didn't, after a year, her mother was like, okay, you need to come home and figure out your life. So, oops. That is one of the big cruxes of the story. But, her mother still wants her to live her life and do what she wants. So, she's like, okay, you have until the end of this summer to get something figured out, and that is the main throughway on the plot. But yeah, it's very it's been very pretty sore. I showed you the OP; it's a banger.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I greatly look forward to spending more time with what is ostensibly my favorite group of Love Live girls. So, what do you got for keepers?
One we share, I think, and that is the second season of Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. You finally watched Jujutsu Kaisen 0, the movie, which I saw at the theaters, and I think you just watched it at home recently. What did you think about that before we get into the second season?
That was... oh, man. That was pretty crazy. I said this to you, but I forgot what Mappa looks like on a movie budget.
I don't remember if I've actually ever seen Mappa on a movie budget. I tried.
I feel like maybe I've seen it once or twice, but I'm having trouble recollecting now. But man,
yeah, yeah. Also, Sang-woo Park was still the director of the movie, and fantastic job. Action scenes the same dynamic, and when all the teachers go all out, that was really one of the moments in the movie where I was like, holy shit. That was the whole movie theater kind of erupted when that happened, because everyone was just being a complete badass, and it was really nice. So all the people that we've mainly seen sitting around in the first season when there was that competition thing, and now you see them in full action, like, okay, all right, I get it. But yeah, it was also interesting because it was a prequel to the first season, and now we're going in the second season even further than Jujutsu Kaisen 0.
Yeah.
Because we go to the time when Satoru and Gedo, the kind of main bad guy of the show, were young students in the school, and were best buddies apparently. So, which was hinted at before in this previous season and in the movie, and we don't know how that turned out yet because the movie ends on kind of a ambiguous note there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we kind of know how it ends because we know that Gedo is still around, but we don't know if Satoru let him go or someone interfered or whatever. So, yeah, we'll probably find out what happened there later in the in the season. But for now, it's like, hey, young Satoru, young Gedo, young Utahime, young Mei, and a bunch of other characters. Some of those we already know, some new ones and stuff like that. But it's really fun to see all these, or some of these characters we've known before now in their young rambunctious high school years, I guess. And yeah, it's there's some fun new lore stuff and everything. And I whatever. It's Mappa action shonen show, whatever. It's a blast, and it looks really good. I mean, the director changed, and the show definitely looks different, but not bad by any means. Like, there's a lot of effort put into this, and yeah, I'm having a great time, and I want to see more of what happens.
Big same. Kind of related, the local con I went to, there was a pair of cosplayers who were Yuta and Rika, but the girl who was cosplaying Rika had like this paper mache thing behind her of like her cursed form. Yeah, and I thought that was like a really cool way of showing that off. I was like, that's really neat, dude. Yeah, absolutely. Cool idea. And yeah, I wonder if we'll see Yuta again in the later part of the season. I think we already saw at the end of season 1. At the end of season 1, I think we saw someone else meeting him from our main cast. I don't know if it was Satoru or someone else, but I think we saw an older version of Yuta in a restaurant or something. So I think he will be in the season once we're done with this flashback arc. I hope so. It'd be interesting to see him again. Yeah, pretty sure. Which was my main reason to tell you, hey, watch the movie, because that seems like it's bringing up a lot of shit that might become relevant later in the show. I know, and I just put it off, but I did watch it before I watched the first episode of the second season. I made sure to do that. And it will be really fun to, like, because now the chronology is kind of fucked up, because you watch the future stuff, then you watch a flashback to the past, and then you go even further back to the past. So it might be fun to watch the show chronologically at some point. But yeah, for now, it's the big blockbuster shonen thing of this season, of course. So I'm all in, and as much as I was in on the first season, and that had some incredible moments. I can't count how many times I watched that fight of Yuji's fight against the brothers, right? Yeah. That was, oh man, and when the Cold Rain song hits, so good. That was really, really one of my favorite anime moments in recent history. It was the choreography was a banger, and the song was a banger, and that whole scene was just peak shonen shit, and I loved it. So I hope the second season will have something that is as good. Yeah, man, I don't throw the word hype around a lot, but whoa. Yeah. Good stuff. Like, yeah, the tag team fight of Yuji and Nobara and their key moments, and both of them being complete badasses, was just so great and so well animated. So we'll see if the second season can offer something like that. I have only watched the first episode so far, like for everything else that we talked about. I assume you're already farther ahead, episode 3, or I don't know if 4 is out yet. I'm going to catch up soon, John, but I've heard things are already starting to pop. Yeah, it goes hard. By the time you hit the end of episode 3, and then what it immediately transitions to in the start of 4. Oof. I'm looking forward to it. In fact, that's probably the first thing I'm going to tackle in my catch-up marathon, because there are a lot of shows I need to catch up, because there was more
I was more playing games in recent weeks instead of watching my anime. So that's coming back to bite me in the ass now. But at least this is a light season. But Jujutsu Kaisen season 2 is a definite keeper for me, as it always would have been, unless it had switched studios to, I don't know, something like
JC Staff.
Leiden Films or Dean.
Oh, I was about to say Dean.
But it's too high profile for that. So right now it's one of those big shonen names. So just like Demon Slayer, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna keep on getting the good treatment. So yeah, looking forward to seeing more. And it seems you are too.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think you have one keeper left, John, or two? No,
I have one more.
Okay.
It's Rent a Girlfriend.
I should have seen this coming. You can't escape, John.
Third season starts with Kazuya trying to help Chizuru get this plan off the ground to make a movie because Chizuru's grandma is in the hospital and she's not doing very well. And she wants to be able to show her grandmother that she was in a movie before she passes. And, you know, that's the big emotional point of this season.
I mean, that seems kind of nice, and
it is, but Kazuya is still an idiot.
Oh boy, is he self-involved about this whole thing, or what is going on?
I mean, the problem with Kazuya is he's so all up in his own head about everything, which mood. Mm-hmm. But you know, I give him credit. I guess he's trying. He's doing his best. He's, you know, trying to talk to people about getting the project off the ground. They're doing this. They start the story with this crowdfunding thing, and he's trying to, you know, bolster the project and, you know, talk to people who can help them get this going. And then one night when Kazuya and Chizuru are talking about their plan in their apartment, guess who shows up but Ruka, and that's a big to-do. And Ruka still insists that she's Kazuya's girlfriend, and she's begrudgingly helping them. And then there's a new neighbor girl who gets involved, too.
Oh, great!
And Yaemori means well, but she needs to learn how to shut her mouth, because she sort of spills the beans to Chizuru that, oh yeah, Kazuya is totally into you. And when Kazuya finds out after the fact, he's like, what is actually the matter with you?
I'm already exhausted just listening to this. So I wish you all the luck and stamina to survive this third season.
The only reason I would call this entire series a complete wash, and I believe I've said this before, is if Kazuya were to get back together with his toxic ex. And if that happens, you can't see it, but I'm shaking my head because I don't know what to say beyond that.
At this point, you wonder if he actually deserves that, maybe, the way he's acting.
But he doesn't. It's clear he doesn't want that. But sure, if they somehow swerve the story in that direction, I'll just be like, bruh.
I don't. Still amazing that it's a keeper for you, John. But hey.
Listen, so was Sword Art.
That's true.
I don't watch a lot of things. This is one of two.
Is there new Sword Art shit coming? I know there's a movie in theaters right now.
There was two movies.
Uh-huh.
There was some quantity of movies, SAO Progressive,
right,
which tell the story, I think, from Asuna's viewpoint, which might be an interesting watch because I hate Kirito and I hate Asuna, but I hate Asuna at least a little bit less than Kirito. And then I think there was supposed to be a new series as well. It's details unclear. Details are unclear. But
Rent a girlfriend is gonna stay in your life for now. That's what you're just trying to tell us. And apparently it's not going away.
No, it's not. I can't wait until I get to the end of this season and they announce a fourth one. You know what? Hold on. I don't actually know if the manga is still going. I don't actually know that. I know there is a spin-off. The manga is still going! Why?
Just for you, John. Just for you.
There's a spin-off manga that is also apparently still going, centered around one of the other girls, Sumi. Like, Sumi is a nothing character.
Well, that's you know that's also going to get an anime adaptation, and you're going to watch that too. Like, and it's never going to leave your life, because this show is going to run for 11 seasons.
Sumi, I mean, don't say 11. Don't say a double-digit number. Sumi is a wholly inoffensive character who exists to exist.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So, like, why do you mean the manga is still going? I thought the manga had ended.
Well, not much to say about that anymore, I guess. And since John is lost, his soul is damned.
Let's move on.
Yes, to much more enticing and happy, positive vibes, like death, war, slavery, in our review of the Vinland Saga Season 2.
Oh.
So, we loved the first season of Vinland Saga.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can speak for both of us there. Was one of my most anticipated things, and I got you hyped on it too. So that was a good thing, I guess, because after that first season finished, we both were like super satisfied with it. It was a great story, great characters, and everything looked great. Was handled by Studio Wit. And it was just kind of the prologue of the story in a way, or just like the first part with Thorfinn still being in his youth and like the whole season kind of being him being on a single-minded mission to revenge his father's death.
I don't think I said this originally, but when we got to the end of the first season, I couldn't believe it when it said end of the prologue. I was like, what do you mean? That was the prologue?
Yeah. Well, it kind of makes sense, right? Because after this, Thorfinn becomes a completely different character.
That's true.
In this season. I mean, he still has development from one character state to another in this season, but he is already a different person here due to what happened to him. But in the first season, he was like this little rage machine that was driven by his father, like his ideal, the person he looked up to the most, being killed in front of his eyes by a guy, a mercenary named Askeladd, who had his own mission. And then they're also roping in a Danish prince called Canute, who becomes much more important in this season. So that the first season was kind of like their story, Canute, Askeladd, and Thorfinn, but with not that much happening with Thorfinn in the first season, since he was kind of like the same character all the time. It was just like, eventually I'm going to kill Askeladd, eventually I'm going to kill Askeladd, but until then, he's kind of manipulating me to do whatever he wants me to do, which had them develop this weird replacement father-son dynamic, which then made it even more problematic for Thorfinn when Askeladd does a thing at the end of season 1 that gets him killed intentionally, and Thorfinn loses basically his entire drive to live, his entire reason why he exists. Like, the person that he thought he hated the most, or that he convinced himself he hated the most, just died, and he wasn't the one doing it. And also that person at this point had already become something else than his arch enemy, and was kind of a father figure as well. So basically his entire life stopped to exist at this point, at least as far as he knew it, right? Mm. So this is kind of where we ended on, but that's not really where the second season, picks back up. First of all, we had a studio switch here. Just like with Attack on Titan, the show switched from Studio Wit to MAPPA. And as with Attack on Titan, this season does maybe not look as good as the previous one, but it's very close. Mm. The character designs are not as sharp, and the environmental shots don't exude quite the same pristine beauty as they did before. But the animation is still great. The direction is just as strong. Makes sense because it's the same director, Shuhei Yabuta, as before. And the soundtrack is magnificent, yet again handled by Yutaka Yamada. A lot of nice somber piano pieces, but also a lot of orchestral stuff. And once the action gets going this season, which takes quite a while, some riveting war drum stuff and everything. So, yeah. Presentation-wise, I would say this is on par with the first season. Would you agree, John?
Oh, absolutely. Like, yeah, there were, like you said, some differences. I feel like most notably the character designs, but I feel like on the whole, this is just as good as the first season, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. There was never really a moment where I felt like, ooh, this is a downgrade or anything. Quite the contrary. I was like, oh man, this is still looking great, and put the emphasis on stuff like the I don't remember if the first season did that as much. It might have been, and I might have just forgot, but it really this season really put the focus on showing people's hands that are, if you want to call it, scarred by work, where like damaged nails and everything, and there are blisters on it, and the hands are swollen and stuff like that. And they show that a lot, like to show that these people, some of them slaves, some of them farmers, like that they are doing heavy work, and just they show that when they are holding each other's hands and stuff like that. And there are some tender moments in certain scenes, especially later, and we'll get to that are kind of gut-wrenching, and there's a lot of focus on showing these people's hands, and see that these are worker hands, and that the characters basically have done some things and seen some things. So that jumped out at me. And MAPPA did a really good job at emphasizing that. I liked it a lot. This season in general just starts off on... has a couple of poems thrown in that introduce us to certain parts of the story, I guess. The first one and the most prominent one that is at the front and the back half of the show, or gets brought up back then, is this Carved poem. I don't know if it's actually an Icelandic poem really, or if it was just made up by the creator of the manga. And it says, carve it into the body, carve it into the ground, carve it into the ocean, carve it into your enemies, carve it into your victims or your spoils, depending on how you look at the translation, I think. Carve that warmth into me. And that was really interesting. I didn't really know what to make of it, but over the course of the season, with where the story was going and what it was doing with people's intentions being conveyed to other people, and also the memories of people, and some characters having to carry the burden of the memories of the people that they killed, Thorfinn, our main character, mostly being responsible for that and having to deal with that. And also love being a big part, that one person cannot exist really without some form of love. Maybe like there's another poem in here that is like a fir on a barren land withers with neither bark nor leaf. So too does the man loved by none. Why should he live a long life? And that is also resonating if you look at a lot of some of the characters in the show that feel all alone in the world and have kind of given up on life and stuff like that, or have succumbed to a certain way of life, them being either the victims of other people or the victimizers, like the people who do bad things to other people. And yeah, it was really interesting. Like the show immediately was like, oh, okay, this is probably gonna be an even more introspective or contemplative season than the previous one was. And it definitely was that, because I think, John, for the first half or first 2/3 of the season, we don't really have any big action scenes, right?
No, none at all.
I mean, there's like something happens in the second half of the season. There is a cool hand-to-hand combat fight. But the first season was really action heavy. There were a lot of big battles. There were a lot of one versus one fights. But this one really is incredibly character focused from the get-go. And it's all about character development. It's all about establishing these new characters that we get introduced to in the second season and where our main characters are and whatever. And there's some fighting, but since the theme of this season and of Thorfinn's journey, as we find out, is learning how to not fight, it makes sense that a lot of the season is actually not about fighting. I wonder how many people who liked the first season because of the action, because there was like, there's a Viking epic and there's blood and gore and everything. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of that in here too, especially in the last third of this. Probably even more so, more violent than in the first one in some parts. But that's not what this season is mostly about. While the first season felt much more straightforward and action heavy. And this one definitely did not. John, how did you feel about the switch in focus in the second season? Did you like it? Were you like, hey, I did not expect this, but I appreciate it? Or were there something that bothered you with that switch of, pacing and everything and the way the story was going?
Yeah, I mean, it was not something I expected, but I think, now that Thorfinn has seen some stuff and done some stuff, I think it makes it a bit more interesting to, see that this is the next step in his arc. Yeah. That, he's trying to change his ways, and that, now after, obviously we can't speak in detail yet about it, but now he has a clear goal.
Yes.
And it took a lot to get him there. Because, when you're young, you're brash and you're stupid and you do things that you shouldn't. But now that, and he's not even that old, but now that he has seen and done things, he understands, okay, all right, this is what I want to do. This is what I need to do. And I think that this season definitely illustrated that really well.
Yes, and it's so, in my opinion, which was my favorite thing about this, is in the first season, Thorfinn is not really a sympathetic character. Mm-hmm. He is single-minded. It's understandable. We know where he's coming. We know why he is the way he is. And it's totally understandable that he's this single-minded, revenge-driven rabid dog in a way. And he's also still a teenager at that point. But, it's still like, if you have to deal with that for 24 episodes or something, that kind of, not talking a lot, but when he talks, he's being an asshole to everyone, is, at some point you're like, oh God, Thorfinn, come on, shut the fuck up, or something like that. Or maybe be nice to a person for a change, which happens on occasion, right? He develops some kind of rapport with Canute and stuff like that. It's not like they actually really, I guess, like each other, but they have like this brother-ish relationship, I guess, or, rival thing going on, or, forced friends. I don't know, but it's interesting. And he has the thing with Ashula going and stuff like that. But he's a very difficult person to like in the first season, aside from his, all the horrifying shit that happened to him, which makes him sympathetic by default in a way, because you feel sorry for him. But that only will carry you so far in any story. So I was really interested to see, okay, what is the story going to do? Because I had only read the manga up to the point where the first season of the anime ended. So I didn't know where we were going from there. I was like, okay, what are they going to do? How are they going to develop Thorfinn in a way that makes him a good, sympathetic, but also interesting and enticing main character? And in my opinion, they succeeded on every level. Like the way they turn him around. By the end of this, he has become such a sympathetic and even cooler character than he was before. Before he was cool because he was a kick-ass fighter, right? He could kick so much ass, but even with a small stature. And he was a menace on the battlefield and stuff like that. But now he found a different way to fight, and we'll get to that. But, or not. depending on how you want to phrase it. And there are parts in this story where it's like where he comes across as even more of a badass because he chooses a different path, and he becomes a super sympathetic, cool, nice character that you want to spend more time with in this show, which I didn't necessarily feel like in the first, all the way through the first season, where I was more interested in the story of the other characters, because there was actually some development, like the Canute story, the Ashalat story, Canute's adopted dad story, and so on. So that was the more interesting part. And the first season wasn't really the season of Ashalat, and we said as much in our review of the first season. So he was kind of the ostensible main character there, with Thorfinn playing more of a side role. But this is Thorfinn's season. And Einar's season. Because he is the other most important part in this season, aside from maybe Canute, though Canute doesn't have that much screen time in this one, or as much screen time as I expected. He's still important, but the most important characters in this are Einar and Thorfinn. And who is Einar, or Einar? Einar is a young man who is sold into slavery when his village is raided and his family is killed. And he even by chance meets Leif in the beginning, who almost buys him, who is on the search for Thorfinn. But that doesn't happen. So he is bought by a farmer called Ketil, who brings him to his farm. And by chance, that farmer also purchased Thorfinn as a slave. And now they get basically matched together, and Ketil is like, hey, this is Thorfinn, he's going to become your friend, and you're gonna farm this land. And once you have sold all the wheat and everything, and you have cut away all the trees and stuff and make this land farmable, you can sell what you have sown to me, and then you can basically buy your freedom. Which, hey, like,
such a pretty good deal.
That must be like the one of the most revolutionary attitudes during that time. I don't know if there were actually people who just bought slaves to free them. I don't know if that was something that was done in that time and age and whatever. But even then, like this attitude of Ketil seems pretty revolutionary, the way he approaches this. And it's like, okay, hey, if you're stuck with this shitty lot, that's something. And he's like, hey, this will probably take 3 years or something, and then you're free. And he seems, judging from the people who work on his farm, he seems to be a man of his word. For all intents and purposes, he seems to be a very benevolent guy, master, who is like, he has 2 sons, but he also has a lot of retainers, and he has also had other slaves before who bought their freedom, and one of them stuck around, apparently, the guy called Pater. And Pater is the one who says, yeah, this is the real deal. You can believe the guy. He will give you your freedom if you actually make this land farmable and everything. So that's kind of like the first quarter part of the story, I guess, maybe?
Ish, yeah.
Ish, quarter, third, where Einar and Thorfinn become buddies and start to make this land farmable and everything, and get on the way to buy their freedom back and everything. And it's cool, like, to see that they're a kind of great match, because in the beginning they couldn't be more different, because Einar is like this kind of hot-headed, fiery guy who has like this will instilled in him from his mother and his sister, who both died. But his mother, before she died, told him, "You gotta live, right? As long as you live, there is still hope. There is still, you can still do things. You can still rebuild. You can still." Remake your life and everything, so don't give up, right? I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what she told him. So that's the last thing he took away from his family, and that's the way he lives. Like, he is being like, hey, I'm not giving up, and he has like this fire in him. And Thorfinn is at this point the complete opposite, because he has, like we established before, lost any reason to live. He is a hollow husk. He has like this vacant stare in his eyes, where it's like he looks like a dead puppet or something. He does his things. He's like being considerate and everything. He was always a man of few words, but now even more so. And he's just doing his work, and it seems like he's just doing it because he's a slave and he's been purchased, and that he's been told to do that.
Yeah, he just kind of exists day to day. Yeah,
exactly, and not much else. And it's kind of genius to have almost the entire first episode play without showing what happened to Thorfinn after the powerful events of the season 1 finale. And that makes his reveal at the end all the more effective, in my opinion. I really like that, because it was like we basically see only Einar and then his journey, and then where's this leading to? Where's Thorfinn? Where are all the other characters? And then, oh, okay, I get it. So that was really good. And a good musical sting when they revealed that. It's like, oh, this is where the story is going. Okay. I mean, the OP also teases that. No, the ED. Not the OP. The ED teases then us what their journey is actually going to be, because we see some nice intercuts of Thorfinn being like tortured by his memories and everything. And this small scene of Einar yelling out at him. And then at the end, like patting him on the shoulder. And it's like, okay, these two, Einar is going to become actual Thorfinn's friend. And he's going to pull him out of this funk and going to show him a new path in life and a new reason to live. And that was really nice. It's like, okay, this is the clear goal. This is what we're going with. The interesting part is how we're getting there. And yeah, it's, like I said, first of all, become friends, make this land farmable. And it's not as easy and not as boring as you might think, because not everyone on the farm is as considerate as Ketil. Like, the free men look down on the slaves and bully them, which is especially shitty considering they could have ended up in the same situation, so they should know better, but of course they can't see that, so they're being assholes. And everyone tries to suck up to Ketil by being nice to one of his sons, Oma, who is supposed to inherit the farm, and that also causes problems. Like, even though he doesn't even want to inherit the farm, he wants to go to war because he's a little dipshit. He has no idea what that actually means. And yeah, the way this works out, one of the bodyguards, the farm has some bodyguards, like this mercenary band with characters who have like animal names, like Fox and Badger and Snake. And one of them, Fox, is a real prick and convinces Oma that to become a real man, he has to undergo the rite of passage that is killing someone, preferably a slave, because you're actually allowed to kill those, of course. Charming. And yeah, so that's one of the first things where we actually see the depths of Thorfinn's despair, because he is not fighting back. Like, Fox is just trying to intimidate Thorfinn because he and Einar are the chosen targets for this rite of passage that the mercenaries pick. Fox tries to intimidate Thorfinn with the threat of death, but we know and we realize pretty quickly that Thorfinn could kill him with a little finger, but it's just so disheartening to see him being so fed up with the never-ending nightmare of his life that he'd rather die. He's just standing there, just being cut with the sword, and like part of his ear is cut off, and that stays that way. It's not like one of those magical shonen anime where that shit gets repaired magically. No, he has a cut ear for the rest of the season.
It's a little more grounded.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, that it's like, wow, okay, this he is so far gone. He doesn't give a shit. He's like, I have never seen anything good in my life, or at least in the last years. Like, I don't remember anything good about my life. All is hell, so fuck it. He's kind of giving up. Only when the leader of the mercenaries comes in and takes a serious swing at him, like his body reacts automatically and is still trying to live by defending itself, muscle memory and all that, which was a cool scene. And you know, Snake is definitely one of the cooler characters in this season. He has his issues too, but he is also like, the moment he appears on screen, everyone immediately knows they fucked up. Like, all of his men are just like, oh shit, oh fuck. It's so great. Like, the face Fox makes, and you know, he gets punched in the face, which is also great. Yeah, but you immediately realize, oh, he is the real deal. He is like, and there's a scene later in the season that underlines that even more so. So yeah, he's one of the cool new characters. Potter is a good guy. And the dynamic between Einar and Thorfinn, like I said, is not immediately like buddy-buddy in the beginning. Like, Einar can't deal with Thorfinn being like this, you know, this some almost mute character. But also the problem is he finds out pretty quickly, I think because Thorfinn straight up tells him that Thorfinn was a Viking raider. that he was part of the raiding crews of the Danish that ransacked villages and that killed a lot of people. And Einar hates war, and he hates people that go to war. Like, for him, they're all monsters and irredeemable at this point anyway, and he just hates all of them, both the English and the Danish. So that's not limited, right? Because he got his village got attacked by both parties. His village got burned down initially by the English, I think, and then his family got killed by the Danish. So he hates both of them. He's like, all of the people who choose war are monsters, and I hate them all. So when he finds out that Thorfinn is one of those, you see there's an anger brewing inside of him that he doesn't know what to do with, and he doesn't know how to handle it. And that kind of culminates in a scene where Einar tries to strangle Thorfinn. Or doesn't try, he actually strangles him. And that's incredibly tense. Even if you know he won't go through with it, because that's not the trajectory of the story, the ED has told us as much. Which is, by the way, I love the first ED. It's a beautiful song, beautiful just animation and everything. Thought it was great. Second OP is also great, because there's another Survive Set the Prophet song. But anyway, you can feel how hard it is for Einar to overcome his hatred for warmongers. But since his raison d'etre is also completely different from Thorfinn's, he is in the unique position to pull Thorfinn's hollowed out soul back from the depths of despair and self-loathing. Like I said before, he's alive because his mother told him that he needs to stay alive and that there's hope as long as you are alive. And since Thorfinn has lost a single-minded reason to live with the death of Askeladd, the target of his lust for revenge, he needs someone like Einar who can show him a new path in life. And like I said, Einar doesn't go through with killing Thorfinn because it's like, this isn't it. And their relationship starts to change. And, he realizes that Thorfinn is tortured by his past deeds because he always wakes up screaming from nightmares and stuff like that. And more they come to understand each other. I mean, Thorfinn is not unsympathetic towards Einar. He's kind of like, whatever, right? Because he doesn't feel real much of emotions at the moment, at least not externally. But quickly, Einar understands where Thorfinn is coming from, that deep down he's a good guy, and that just he was part of the circumstances and didn't know how to get out of those. And so Einar gets past his hatred pretty quickly. And there is this moment where Thorfinn puts it all out on Front Street. He says, since he's lost his hatred for Askeladd, he is empty. Like, he only knew life on the battlefield and doesn't know how to do farming or fishing. And Einar and another guy they meet, Ketil's father, Sverkel, who's like kind of still the leftover patron of this farm in a way, and helps our two main characters out. They let Thorfinn know that it's fine and he can learn new things one by one and people can change and start over. That is if the world lets you change. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. At that point, like, the vacant stare in Thorfinn's eyes starts to disappear. And actually, this turnaround happened much faster than I expected. I think we get there the moment is after when Einar tries to strangle him and doesn't, and then they get talking and everything. And that's when Thorfinn actually thanks him, and they start becoming friends. And I think that happens in episode 4? Episode 3, I'm not quite sure. So I was kind of surprised how fast Einar and later Sverkel get Thorfinn out of his funk. John, was that okay for you in terms of pacing, or was that a bit too fast? Did you want for Thorfinn to take longer to, become more of a human being again, or did that feel like natural?
I guess for the sake of trying to move the story, it's better that it went fast, but I think, it would have made more sense if it took, like, maybe even a couple more episodes worth of time, just, for it to seem a little more organic. I don't know, it's tough, though. That's a compromise you have to make when telling stories, you know what I mean?
Agreed, yes. And I mean, we can assume, because there was a time jump between the end of season 1 and this. Was it 1 year or 2 years? I'm not sure. I don't know I think overall it when they meet at the Canute at the end, I think he says it's been 4 years. So I assume it was 1 year between the end of season 1 and season 2. And then we get 3 years with Einar and Thorfinn on the farm. You can assume that in that 1 year, he was just like this hollow person for the entire time. So it makes sense that once a person that comes into his life that actually learns to care for him genuinely and starts to relate to him and everything, he would find a way to turn this around. I don't even know what... I think Thorfinn asked him, why do you always wake me up when I have a bad dream or something? I don't remember what Einar says. I think it's something... If it's something along the lines of, you seemed like you needed it or you were calling out or something, and I heard and I listened. Something along those lines, I think. And yeah, from that moment on, they start to become actual kind of brothers in a way. And that actually... The ending confirms that of this season, but we'll get to that. But yeah, just as Thorfinn needs Einar to show him a new life perspective, Einar needs Thorfinn to illustrate what ill-guided hatred can cost you. So they have like life experiences they can share with each other that enriches both characters and helps them to evolve. Because, like I said, Einar is a hothead, and he can get lost in his hatred as well, which becomes very important later in the season again. But also, you know, when he gets bullied by the free men of the retainers of the farm and everything, he is not... when they ruin the fields that they already sowed and everything, he kind of wants to beat the shit out of them, and that could get dangerous and stuff like that. And Thorfinn tries to intervene. And at the same time, Thorfinn is still being torn apart by the memories of the people he killed. And he has like this recurring nightmare where he kills a young boy that looks like Einar, where it's like, okay, I might have done that, or that's how he remembers it. Not that he actually killed Einar, which doesn't make sense, but that he killed, that he helped kill families just like Einar's family. So he feels already guilty, even though he probably wasn't directly involved with anything that happened to Einar's village. So it's understandable that he has like this uneasy relationship with Einar at first. And it's like he is afraid of becoming his friend because he feels like he doesn't deserve it, because he's of the same people that hurt Einar. And yeah, that's totally understandable. And then we get like this stunning dream sequence triggered by Thorfinn punching one of the retainers after they have done shit to his and Einar's field and getting knocked unconscious as well. And he almost gets pulled into like this blood red sea of eternal strife that was his former life, or it stands for what his former life was. He has also like this vision of Ashalat, who tells him to face the people he killed and carry their memories as his burden into reality, to walk his new path as a true warrior, which is one that swears off violence. And yeah, that kind of becomes his new path after this dream, after he wakes up from this dream sequence. Where it's like, okay, I want to try to not do violence anymore and not harm anymore. Trying to become a pacifist in a way. And then it's all about, will this world actually let him follow the true pacifist route? Or will he have to hurt more people to protect, for example, his new friend, Einar? But yeah, there's also some world building happening here. After King Sweyn being killed at the end of the first season, he is succeeded by his son Harald, who is the older brother of Canute, who becomes the king of Denmark. And after getting rid of some rebellious English forces, Canute is crowned the king of England. And as much as we could assume before, he is a gifted tactician and not afraid to use underhanded methods, like poisoning his enemies. He has somewhat of a moral compass, or a moral mission, I guess. For example, he punishes pillaging soldiers from his own ranks by having them beheaded. But at that moment, you're still wondering, okay, what is this long game? We know he has like kind of vision of a utopia, but we didn't really know what that means yet and how he means to realize it. So that was an interesting part. And Canute and his brother have a good relationship. At least as kids, but that doesn't stop Canute from poisoning his brother to become the one true king of the Northern Sea. I guess all in the service of his ambition to create his vision of a utopia without strife. Like, probably he thinks that under his unified rule he can control all of the Vikings who do so much violence and everything, and that will lead to less harm for the normal people. He also has visions of the head of King Swain mocking him for taking the same cursed path, or this cursed path. But at this moment, Canute seems to be more amused by it than anything else. He's kind of cocky, talking bad to the severed head of his father, which was kind of gruesome, but also funny scene. Yeah, that's what's happening at this part of the story. And then we get another time jump, like I said, of 3 years, where Thorfinn and Einar are basically just tending the fields and fulfilling their goal to buy their freedom. And that's, what happens. And they actually managed to pull that off, which is great. And Ketil even gives them a little bonus and is like, hey, you don't even need to sell me that stuff. You can just, once you're done with sowing these seeds, you're free. And if you want, you can stay. You can become my retainers and work on this farm. Or you can go wherever you want. Which is really nice. And they actually consider it, right? Because, hey, this is a nice place. We already know our way around here. And maybe this is actually what we want. Plus, Einar has a person on this farm that he is, well, let's call it, he's very much in love with her.
He's very sweet on her.
He hasn't made any advances towards her. It's more like admiring from a distance, also because there's some problems, because she's kind of like the maid of Ketil and becomes involved with him, and so that's problematic. But he really, because she's a fellow slave and everything, and he knows she doesn't have the same deal as they got. She can't buy her freedom. He considers staying on the farm, so maybe he can buy her from Ketil and stuff like that later, maybe. So there are a lot of things to consider for those two. But all of that is thrown in the goddamn garbage by Ketil and his two sons, Omar, the dipshit, and Torgil. We haven't talked about Torgil yet, who is like the complete opposite of his brother. And man, these names get samey. Torgil, Torkel, Thorfinn.
Well, you know.
Yeah, but it's, he's also Ketil's son and a seasoned warrior. And unlike his father, he's very quick to dish out violence. And he admires the lie of his father having been an unbeatable warrior in his young days. Turns out Ketil is a bit of a con man, because there is like this legend of this character called Ketil the Iron Fist, who is like this seasoned warrior, and just because Ketil has the same name, he assumed that role so people would admire him and listen to him and work for him and stuff like that. So he told the same lie to his sons, and of course Torgil wanted to, be like his father, and Oma wants to be too, but Torgil actually, became that fake version of his father, which is not really his father. He became the version of that story and became like the seasoned warrior who's just lusting for like the cliche of the Viking we've seen in season 1 so many times, who's just out for war and violence and wants to kill people left and right. But yeah, Ketil actually, on the other hand, abhors war and violence, at least he says as much, and can barely bring himself to punish 2 kids who were stealing from him. That couldn't be much more different in a way. And Omar is like, he's trying to be like this warrior, but he's so bad at it, like he can't swing a sword properly and everything. So all of these 3 meet up at a place where they're supposed to meet King Harald, and Ketil is bringing presents and everything, because he has kind of made an arrangement with King Harald, who is supposed to protect his land, and he wants to strengthen that relationship and so on. But then Harald dies. Why? Because Canute poisons him.
This has to stop.
Yeah, so that he can become the true king of the North Sea, as I said before. And I was wondering how the stories of Canute and Thorfinn would actually intersect again. And in episode 11, they finally dropped the other shoe. In order to keep his stationed forces of soldiers funded, Canute intends to requisition farmland to reap its profits. And one doesn't have to be a genius to guess which particular farmland will be affected by that decision. And yeah, so during that meeting where Ketil was actually supposed to meet Harald, he meets Canute, and Canute learns that Ketil is a very wealthy farmer. And he's like, well, there's our first goal. This is the farm we're going to requisite first, but we can't do it just without reason, or we might get some ire from the people. So we're going to set up a little theater act and make Omar, who is just so desperate to join the ranks. Yeah.
He's an idiot.
He's an idiot, yeah. He's such a punk. Like, he has a goddamn skull as a belt buckle. What a fucking poser. I mean, I guess I should feel sorry for him for being played for a fool so thoroughly, but my empathy for overzealous dipshits has its limits. At that point, I felt really sorry for Ketil, though, because one of Canut's men orchestrates a fixed fight that Omar gets to win by killing the person. And Torgil doesn't seem into it, but he unknowingly helps to move the plan along smoothly. And man, the way he dismantles the other guys is some of the most violent stuff the show has offered so far. Mm-hmm. It's especially jarring considering how action-heavy the first season was overall, and this one wasn't. Like I said, we don't really had a big action scene in the first half of the season up to this point. And then we get this slaughter fest where Torgil just kills all of the king's guards. And yeah, that is what they wanted. They wanted a reason for, because this is of course an insult to the king and everything, and now they have a reason to requisite Ketil's land as a punishment. And Ketil sees everything, he's gonna lose everything, and he can't do anything about it, and they have to flee the meeting. And they actually managed to do that with the help of Leif, who they run into. And Leif is still on the mission to find Thorfinn, and he actually finds out that Ketil has a slave who his name is Thorfinn, and manages the description that he's giving out. So he helps them under the condition that he gets to take Thorfinn away from the farm and back to Iceland. And yeah, that kinda is the setup for the last part of this season, where we all know this will culminate in a big battle between Canut's forces and the people on the farm. There's an additional hook thrown into this as well, because Arnate, the woman that Einar is very smitten with, her husband is also a slave and freed himself from a neighboring farm, killed his owners and everything, and tries to reclaim her, so to speak. And we learn her whole backstory, which is really sad and visibly affects Thorfinn. Mm-hmm. Because, again, he knows he could have been part of the raiding party that attacked her village. You see that on his face immediately. And she is torn between the love for her husband and wanting to give her new child, which is, of course, Ketil's child, a safe home. And yeah, in this moment, Thorfinn has determined that it's not enough for him to just abstain from hurting others. To give the souls of the people he killed peace, he intends to grow more wheat than he trampled, build more houses than he burned. He says you can't achieve true peace with violence, which is a very different viewpoint compared to that of Canute, which he uses violence and oppression to make life, I guess, better in a way, at least for some people. And Thorfinn wants to create a village where nobody has to fight ever. Einar remarks that that's not possible because eventually there will always be Viking raiders and you would have to defend the village. So Thorfinn finally remembers the old stories about the titular Vinland, aka America, I guess. A place where all outcasts can find a home and nobody would be subject to strife. A nice ideal, but as people from the future, we know that his dreams are just that, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see where this goes, but at this moment it's like, okay, this probably will not turn out the way you hope it will be, but it's a nice motivation, and it's finally a goal he can strive for. Before this was all unclear, because deep down he knew, even if I abstain violence, even if I try to just defend myself or not fight at all, this might cost the people I care for their lives, because I can't protect them. So what am I going to do? Well, I need to run away to a place where there is no fight at all. So Vinland is like this faraway goal, this faraway land that Leif told him about once, and that, yeah, he intends to go to with the people that are suffering here, and he plans to take them with him and give them a home there where there's no war and everything, which is nice. And yeah, so he, for the first time, has a clear path, or kind of clear path, on what he wants to do with his life, and that invigorates him. The problem is, now we have the threat of Canute's forces approaching, and also the husband of Arnate is running loose, and Snake and his men are tasked to bring him in because he killed his owners and he needs to be punished and everything. So what ends up happening is, and also because Arnate's husband, Gardar, killed a lot of Snake's men when he tried to apprehend him. And so it's because Einar and Thorfinn want to help Arnate, they also try to help her get away with Gardar. And that leads to a fight between Snake and Thorfinn, where Thorfinn has to make a decision, like stay pacifist or defend Gardar to fulfill his promise to Arnate and Einar. And he's still trying to figure out what his way of a true warrior is. But yeah, as expected, the fight between Snake and Thorfinn is a showstopper. Mm-hmm. Man, I don't know. We probably had a fight that looked as good in the first season in terms of choreography and everything. I think the first fight between Thorfinn and Torkil was really good. And there was a fight, I think, between Torkil and Ashelat that was really good. But in this season, we didn't have anything like that so far. So this was a real amazing thing, especially since Thorfinn he only uses his fists, and Snake has a fucking sword. And he's just defending and trying to steer Snake away from a cart that Gardar, Arnate's husband, is on. So it's a really tense fight. It's really well animated. It's really well choreographed. But despite his best efforts, Thorfinn can't stop Snake from inflicting a mortal wound on Gardar. So after Gardar manages to choke out Snake, he and Arnate leave in Sverkel's cart. Arnate being very aware that her husband will die soon. And we get like this incredible collection of scenes with, a mix of Gardar succumbing to his injuries while having dreams of all the moments that led him here, remembering his son being born and growing up, feeling regret for leaving his family and finally being reunited with his son, though only in a dream or death. It's tender, it's heartbreaking, and it's directed so well. This was probably one of my favorite moments from this season. John, what did you think?
It was heart-wrenching, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really well done. Some of those scenes we also already saw at the very beginning of the show during the recitation of the first of the Carve poem, without knowing that it would relate to a particular part of the story. But it was a nice, full circle thing when we came to that. And I really liked that. It was really sad scene, it was really a sad moment, and you felt really sorry for that character, especially since there's this despair on his face when he has this part of the dream where he sees through the eyes of his son, maybe, or he sees his wife and sees himself leaving for a battle that will cause his wife being enslaved and his son being killed. And it's so gut-wrenching. He's trying to reach out to stop himself from leaving his family behind, right? Because it's the wrong decision, but he can't change it anymore. And it was such a powerful, sad moment. And yeah, really well done. It ends on kind of a nice note because he gets reunited with his son in the afterlife. But still, it's a very sad scene. And Arnate is left behind, at least for now. And yeah, then we get one of the most ugly scenes in the show, in the season. And I gotta give my respect and kudos to the show for being willing to do such an effective full heel turn for Ketil. One of the characters that was painted as entirely sympathetic up to this point. But as the show has already established, he is a weak man. And just like his father said, the more you have, the more can be taken away from you. And in the face of losing all that he has built, after having already suffered the loss of the woman he loved as a young man, he goes off the deep end and unleashes all his pent-up aggression, fear, and feeling of impotence on Arnate. Because he feels betrayed by her, because, he heard that she tried to run away with her husband. But there was a reason for that, because, she remembered their good times, and she was hoping that could happen again and everything. So it was not an easy decision for her. But he doesn't care. He only sees her betrayal in a way, and he's beating the shit out of her with a stick, not even considering to spare the child in her body because he doesn't believe her words anymore. He doesn't believe it's his child. He doesn't care. Yeah, it's a very ugly scene and hard to watch.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, it was to be expected that he'd completely fall apart under the pressure of everything that happened to him in the past few episodes. That's the person he always was. And it also serves as a reason why the fight against Canute's forces would actually happen, because now Ketil is hellbent on not letting any more of his property being taken away from him. And yeah, it was pretty well done. Was definitely not an easy scene to watch. And it makes him a completely unsympathetic character at this point. You still understand where he's coming from, but he's like, wow, you fucked up hard, and this is a real piece of shit moment for you. And I guess the only part that is good about this is he has to live with that memory for the rest of his life, because he really loved Arnheid for a while there. At least that's what it felt like. She was like his haven, the only person he could tell to that he was a weak person, that he was afraid of violence and war and everything, that he isn't a fighter. That's probably also the reason why he felt so betrayed by this. You know, he lost his whole farm and everything, or is about to lose his farm and everything, and then he loses the one person that he confided into that knew the real person, but then he just lost it. Which doesn't, not excusing his actions, not at all. He's a piece of shit for beating her. But, you know, again, it's understandable, and now he has to live with beating and eventually killing the person he loved. And, yeah, that's probably...
In spite of being married himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's not forget that he's also unfaithful. So,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, his wife also seems not to be a nice person, so...
She doesn't seem to care.
She only seems to care about being rich as well and stuff like that. I don't know. She is more of a one-sided character. I mean, she gotta feel hurt for him betraying her, right, and not being a faithful husband. But she also doesn't seem to be a nice person, so whatever. Yeah. Not saying that she deserves an unfaithful husband, but still, it's like I feel nothing towards her and her fate in all of this.
Yeah, she's such an insignificant character, but just the same.
Yeah, so this after this ugly scene, things are gearing up for the big fight, and we get this reunion between Leif and Thorfinn, sadly off screen, kinda, because when we see them together, they have already met again, and you know, it's still cool, it's still warm feelings and everything, but it would have been a nicer, warmer beat among all the misery that is currently unfolding if we had seen them actually meet each other again, and Leif being like, oh God, I finally found you, right? Which we don't see. We seem like, hey, I couldn't believe that it was actually you because you look so different, but you're definitely your father's son and everything. So and you have grown. So there's a nice moment between the two, but it's not like this tearful, hey, reunion. We get that later, and that's very fulfilling. But you know, I would have liked to see that also between them. But maybe also they didn't do that, so the other reunion we get in the last episode is more powerful. Who knows? But yeah, this is just something that stuck out in me. Still a nice moment. Then the big fight happens. Snake knows that Ketil is a con artist and not the real Iron Fist Ketil, but he'll fight regardless to convince him that they can't win. He's like, we have to engage with Canute's forces at least once to make Ketil realize that he can't win this. He has to surrender. And it's kind of heartening to see his men be loyal to their commander, even though it's a losing battle. The problem is he hasn't accounted for Ketil being so far gone at this point and being just completely stubborn and brain dead and being like, no, my farm is mine, right? He doesn't see that his forces are completely outmatched, even though they have more people. All of these are inexperienced fighters, and Canute has his King Guard and the fucking Joms Vikings. So that is not something you want to mess with. And the battle goes as expected. Ketil buys too much into his own hype as being the Iron Fist, which he's not. And, you know, his ramshackle forces have no chance against Canute's forces. So, Thorfinn, again, to show that both these characters are important to each other and to the development, Thorfinn protects Einar from becoming part of the cycle of hatred and revenge by stopping him from killing Ketil in a fit of rage over Arneid's death, which was, I guess, a really important scene because, like I said, Einar always a hothead, and this might have gone wrong, but Thorfinn is like, hey, don't go down this road. I know this road. It doesn't do anything good. It's not going to make you happy. It's not going to make you feel good if you're taking that revenge, and the hole is just going to be bigger in your life. So just don't. And it ends how it ends. Basically, a lot of people from Kittel forces lose their life. He loses consciousness and almost gets killed by Einar before Thorfinn intervenes. But then it's like, hey, it's like, you gotta surrender. His wife doesn't want to. But the current head of the farm is Olmar. And after meeting Olmar the first time at the very beginning of the show, I wrote down in my notes, Olmar seems to be a dumbass, but maybe he'll surprise us.
Surprise he did.
Yes, unlike his father, he is able to admit to his fear and weakness, in spite of the macho doctrine of the Norsemen. And he takes responsibility for playing his part in causing this clusterfuck. And as the current acting head of the family, decides to surrender. He even stands up against his giant-ass brother, which is cool. Like, good for him. I really like that scene. I thought, oh, this is a nice turnaround. This is really cool. I hope they would do something like that with this character, because at this point he was like a one-note dipshit. Understandable, because you know where he was coming from. He just wanted to be like an image of his dad that it wasn't true. But now he has found his kind of own strength by admitting that he's afraid, that he's not a fighter, and that he is afraid of war and violence and everything, and death, which is totally understandable. And he makes the right decision. Thorfinn is not like, he's not even part of that conversation, I think, but he makes his own decision. He's like, I'm trying to go to Canute because we know each other, and I'm trying to convince him to not take over the farm, to not requisite it, and not to put Ketil and all the people on this farm into exile. And his way to do this is he tries to have a conversation with him. Canute's men won't let him, and Canute doesn't seem, even when his right-hand man, Ulf or Wolf, I don't know what his actual name was in the show. I think I saw both in the subs at some point.
Yeah.
One time I saw Wolf, one time I saw Ulf. Both make sense. But I assume Ulf. But yeah, he even tells him that a guy named Thorfinn is there. But Canute is like, nah, I don't need to see him. So it's like, I was wondering, is he like afraid of him in a way? Like that, because he hasn't achieved his goal yet that he said he would achieve to Thorfinn or whatever? Or because Thorfinn was the one who gave him the scar under his eye? I don't know. That was interesting. But yeah, Thorfinn kind of encounters the Kingsguard of Canute, who won't let him pass, and try to beat the shit out of him. And then he finds out that they're betting on how many hits he can take before he falls. And he's like, hey, I'm going to get in on that bet. And they're like, hey, if you can stand the punches of this hulking giant draught, like 100 of those, and are still standing, you will get an audience with the king. And yeah, Thorfinn takes the phrase "turn the other cheek" quite literally. Yeah. 100 times. Or 99. And yeah, he gets punched, and he gets even almost knocked out at some point because he's distracted, even though he knows how to take a punch from his war experience and everything. He knows how to twist his body and everything to lessen the impact. But Einar come and I think, I don't know if who the other guy was, probably Snake, who tried to convince him, no, what are you trying to do? We tried to solve this by conversation, and it's impossible. And Thorfinn, there's this moment where Thorfinn, after almost being knocked out, gets up and is like, you haven't tried everything yet. Have you really tried everything yet? Have you really put your all into it? And he taunts Strahd into continuing his barrage of punches up to 100. I think at that point they're only at 24 or something. And it's one of the most epic moments in the show. And it's just a guy having beaten the shit out of him and still standing. But just the will, the iron will of Thorfinn in this point. Like his goal set in mind, and him being like, I'm not going to punch back. I'm not going to hit you back. I'm just going to take your punches. But I will survive this. I can take this punishment. I can make the sacrifice. Was such a badass scene. As badass, or even more badass, maybe, than the fights he had in the first season. It was so cool. John, what did you think about the scene?
Man, I think you said it best with "turn the other cheek," but man, it was harrowing, 'cause especially after he takes that one like clean hit, and you're like, is he going to be able to do this thing, or is the message that he has for Canute not going to be able to get delivered, and well, that's the end of everyone on the farm, including himself.
But he does it. And he gains... Everyone was mocking him in the beginning, right? Ah, you're so small, and what you know Canute, that's bullshit. You never met him, and the thing that you were part... that you traveled with him for a while was a lie and everything. But by the end, after he takes these 100 punches from this incredibly powerful warrior, it's like everyone is like, holy shit, that guy's for real. Like, Drott kneels down before him, is like, I'm sorry I mocked you, like, you are an actual true warrior. I can't beat you. This is incredible, right? It's such a cool, validating moment. And he did do it by not fighting back, right? He just took it. And he just was the bigger man and was able to withstand that. And that was fucking cool. And then he just walks off with his face swollen basically everywhere. It's like, well, Einar, follow me. We are going to have a talk with the king. You probably have some words for him as well. Come on. It's so badass. And then we have like this intense face-off between Canute, Thorfinn, and Einar where their worldviews clash. And... yeah, basically everyone is putting out what they're thinking on Front Street and throwing it at each other's faces. Canute is like, hey, I have a plan to become the sovereign king in this part of the world and making things better that way. Thorfinn is like, hey, if you're still oppressing people, you're doing it the wrong way, and that's not my way. My way is, as long as I've got some place to run, I won't fight, and I'll create a world for the people who have no place in yours, and if you keep going to oppress more people, eventually there will be nobody left to support you or left in your world. Also, you will create more work for me, someone who has much less power than you, so do better. And with those words, Thorfinn is actually able to convince Canute to leave the farm and all other farms for that matter alone. Because, he sees like, okay, this isn't the way. This is not how I achieve my utopia. And it works out. Canute has to dissolve his station forces, but instead of rising up, the English nobility takes this as a showing of trust and pays it back with loyalty to Canute's reign. So Thorfinn did that. And that was really cool. I mean, that's not how it happened in real history, let's be honest. I'm pretty sure, I haven't read up on it, but I can't believe that this is what actually happened. I don't think so.
Shut up, it's fine, don't worry about it. Shut up.
But this is fine. This is historical fiction. And in terms of how these two stories of these two characters were set up and what their different viewpoints on the topic of war and how to make things better for the people in their country in their own way are, this is a valid conclusion. And this is an interesting part, how they wrap up that part of the story. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that they won't meet up again, but also after this, maybe Canute doesn't play as much of a big part in this story anymore, because he has done his part, now he's the king, but, doesn't try to do as bad of shit anymore, and Thorfinn's gonna try to fuck off to America. So maybe they won't meet each other anymore. So, who knows? But it's a real interesting new status quo, and we get a nice kind of epilogue of 2 episodes, like the farm is saved, but Thorfinn and Einar leave with Leif for Iceland. And there's this great scene where they're shaking hands as brothers in front of Arnade's grave and vowing to build a place without war and slavery in Vinland. And it's a powerful moment. So powerful indeed that despite us knowing very well that they won't succeed probably, we still want to believe they can. So, yeah, very well done. Swelling music and everything. And it's like, wow, these characters already have been through so much and have become such good friends, have become brothers. And it's really cool. And I can't wait to see what comes next for them. And that's where the moment where they bring back the carved poem, which reflects their journey and everything. So, yeah, really cool conclusion to this particular arc of the story. And then we get this final episode with a lot of levity and positive vibes, and it's really nice to have that after all the misery of those 2 seasons.
For real, though.
I mean, there were some nice and funny moments before, but, very, very few and far between.
Yeah.
Basically only at the beginning of the first season, and then some characters being jackasses and whatever. But this was a nice, genuine, lighthearted episode where Thorfinn gets reunited with his mother and sister, hugging his childhood friend Ari, Einar getting a new family as Thorfinn's chosen brother. It all warmed my heart. And Ilva, his sister, reacting as expected, brings a much welcome dose of humor. And Leif actually got to fulfill his promise to Thors. Yay.
Yeah.
What a nice way to end the season. I really loved that. It was really just a nice bookend to the journey, and him crying into his mother's arms and everything. And I really loved that. It was really emotional, and it was so glad to finally see him after all the shit he went through to get this little in-between happy end chapter before they try to get to Vinland, actually. And man, I was really happy with the way this season ended up. And we get some teases to probably relevant characters for the next season, which will hopefully happen. Because so far the track record of this adaptation has been 10 out of 10 despite changing studios. And I want more. John, do you feel the same?
Where's season 3? Give me season 3. I mean, real talk though, Mappa is spread so thin that it's gonna be a minute, and that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we waited a while for the second season to be actually confirmed. For a long time we didn't even know which studio would handle it, right? We just knew Wit is probably not going to do it. And then, oh god, who is going to do it? And then it was kind of a relief to see that Mappa is going to do it. And I hope, so far, with all the projects that they took over from other studios, I mean, which
is a lot.
I mean, at this point is a lot, but what do we have? We have Attack on Titan, we have One Punch Man, we have Vinland Saga, right? Do we have anything else?
There's got to be, and I can't remember.
Yeah, but Attack on Titan, they are wrapping up, right? They continued that. They are finishing that up. It's going to wrap up in the next season or in winter. I don't remember.
It's supposed to be sometime in fall.
Yeah, so they're definitely dedicated to finishing that up. And I hope they will do the same thing for Vinland Saga and One Punch Man, for that matter. I can't wait for the third season of One Punch Man now, because it's going to be a severe upgrade from season 2.
Like, I forget if it was Yukimura or Yabuta that was talking before season 2, and one of them was like, yeah, we want to do it, but we don't know, if we can make that happen at this point in time. So this existing in and of itself, kind of a small miracle. So hopefully we'll get, I think after this, from what I was looking at, there's 2 more big arcs. There's the Eastern Expedition arc and then the Vinland arc, which is ostensibly the ending. But it apparently, if you look at the number of chapters, the ending has a very long tail, which is okay, fine. But, we'll have to see what happens.
So maybe 2 or 3 seasons more, we'll see.
Ish.
Yeah, I assume they're just going to try to get more people and funds and everything, and to actually be able to travel to Vinland, because that's a long fucking journey, which I assume is then the Eastern Expedition part thing. And then, like you said, they actually try to travel to Vinland and create a village there, an existence there. And we'll see how much of that is actually going to, are they going to run into Native Americans in Vinland? Is there going to be new war? And then they realize, oh fuck, we'll never be without war? Shit! We'll see. I hope that's not what happens, but who knows? But yeah, I'm super excited to find out. So far, this adaptation has been dream come true for me, because I liked what I read of the manga so much, and then I got this great first season, and now we get this fantastic second season. And I have nothing to complain really about these 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Like this, just every episode is like, oh, this is great. Oh, great character development. Oh, fantastic new characters to listen to. And a great story, great, very interesting and difficult themes like slavery, war, death, depression, and despair and everything, and trying to find a new path in life after you've done a lot of harm. Redemption, salvation, pacifism, all interesting topics, and all handled so well in this show. And goddamn, I'm head over heels for Vinland Saga, and I just wish one of these days Berserk is gonna get a treatment like Vinland Saga is getting, like a mature take on a mature story with very good production values. And so far, like I said, nothing to complain about this adaptation and this story so far. And I hope it's gonna stay the same. I assume you feel the same, John.
Yes. Yes, for sure.
All right, yeah. So, this season felt very different than the first one. A lot less focus on action, even more driven by character development. Contemplative, introspective, a lot of food for thought. And, like I said, I loved every second of it. Vinland Saga is just a fantastic story, and we hope we get to see more of this epic tale unfold in the not-too-distant future. And that is a wrap on the 145th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in this podcast is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to virt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for our review index and more. Leave us comments and questions on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at AnyBrainFreeze, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next episode. Macht's gut.
Take care, everybody. Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
Is there a place called heaven in the post-apocalypse, or is it just a delusion?
And the journey home from Russia and the gold rush intensifies.